Hi everyone, Al the Psych here. I have a video for you about object attachment within hoarding disorder, HD, and compulsive buying shopping disorder, CBSD. That's the way I'll just identify them sometimes. Most of the information I got is from an article entitled The Things That Make Us, Self and Object Attachment in Hoarding and Compulsive Buying Shopping Disorder. This is from Richard Moulding, Christopher Kings, and Tess Knight, and published in 2020. And then I got some information from other sources, Psychology Today, and of course I always, add my little tidbits. So if you want a pure, uncontaminated version, you have to go to the article and read that yourself. Okay, so I have a lot of information. I'm thinking I'm probably going to break this down into two parts, just because there's so much. Okay, so here we go. The article starts off with a lot of information. It kind of gives us a whole list in terms of definition. So here's what it says. In today's society, possessions serve as an important role in defining who we are. So number one, possessions are connected to both self, to, and others. 3, across the lifespan and even across cultures. 4, consider consumer research suggests that possessions are often acquired as means to connect with past, present, and possibly future selves. 5, burglary or natural disaster leading to a loss of items can result in grief and damage to self-concept and even a sense of physical violation. And number 6, further, objects to which individuals are strongly attached are associated with increased individuation and or integration with others. Okay, that's a lot to digest. So let's see if we can kind of decipher this a little bit. Okay, it mentions that excessive levels of object attachment, psychological or emotional bonds an individual experiences toward an object are associated with pathological outcomes, particularly hoarding disorder, HD, and compulsive buying shopping disorder, CBSD. I've taken some information from Psychology Today. It says the 11th revision of the International Classification of Diseases, ICD-11, includes an other specified residual category among impulse control disorders. One example of an other specified impulse control disorder is compulsive buying shopping disorder, okay, so CBSD. Now, in HD, it's the emotional attachment to objects that makes it so difficult for the individual to discard them. Okay. The acquisition behavior of individuals with HD is similar to acquisition behavior of individuals with CBSD, but individuals with CBSD don't necessarily have a continued attachment to objects, once they're acquired. Okay, so they have more of a craving or an urge. They have a temporary desire to instantly own a specific product, but it's not like with individuals with HD, who can't let go of the item later on. Now, the authors from the article reference Dittmer and Dittmer's social psychological model, which presents that CBSD is an identity-seeking buying behavior, with CBSD being driven jointly by materialistic values and discrepancies in identity. Okay, so identity-related buying motives refer to those that lead to improvements in an individual's personal and social identities. So, for example, buying goods following the perception of shortcomings in one's self-concept, and an attempt to move closer to one's ideal self. Okay, that guides and improves one's social image. Okay, more information as I look at my notes. Kyrgios and colleagues presented that compulsive buying behavior was driven by compromised self-perception, okay, suggesting that the development of specific buying-related cognitions is made more likely if the individual has a binary self-perception, okay? So all good, all bad, positive, negative, okay? And you know, we see this a lot in individuals with narcissistic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder. We see these extremes, okay? This real rigid mindset of things are all in one, black or white, yes or no, good or bad, you know, beautiful, ugly, that sort of thing, okay? Frost and colleagues speculated that self-ambivalence drives individuals to look for meaning in possessions, okay? Now, let me go a little bit further here. I'll have this titled as, this section as Overlap Between Self and Objects in Hoarding Disorder. So Frost and Stakiti said that 4 related factors drive hoarding disorder. Okay, information processing deficits, erroneous beliefs about possessions, behavioral avoidance distress, and emotional attachments to objects. I've got another video that kind of explains all of that. But emotional attachments to objects is a central construct in the model. And it relates to higher hoarding symptoms and makes cognitive behavioral treatments more difficult. So it's the emotional attachment that really becomes somewhat of a sticking point with HD. Now, when considering object attachment within HD, there's an overlap reported between self-concept and possessions, kind of like a Venn diagram, okay, where one's identity is connected through objects, okay. Behaviors in hoarding form a continuum with more general notions of object attachment, including, and they reference William James, notion that a man's self is the sum total of all that he can call his. And then they also reference Belk with what he said, that the extended self comprises not just the body, internal ideas and experiences, but also those persons, places, and things to which one feels attached. So you can see the expanse of, you know, the extended self that Belk references. Now, we have some studies that support that the distinction between self and objects can become blurred. Again, kind of like that Venn diagram, it can become blurred within hoarding. Okay, Kellett and colleagues, reporting on semi-structured interviews with 11 individuals with self-identified hoarding, noted that a fusion between self and objects was apparent. So the person that has all this stuff, it's theirs, it's part of them, even ridiculous year-old newspapers. Okay, that's taken from Kellett and colleagues. Finally, in another study, it was reported that objects could become physical extensions of the self, in that there is a sense of feeling whole if I have those physical things around me. If I do a complete clean out, I'm completely gone. Wow. Okay, my identity is gone. Further, the objects could also serve as physical extensions of others. And they reference a case with Nora, describing taking her past mother's possessions as feeling like I was taking my mother with me, almost like parts of her. Okay, now, to me, part of this sounds like having a transitional object to deal with bereavement. which is a typical thing to do. I actually have a video on transitional objects. But the way it sounds like to me, um, and I have transitional objects from my parents, but the way that this is presented kind of sounds like it's taken it way further down on the continuum. Okay, I mean, there's one thing to, to have a transitional object to help you feel a little bit more comforted and soothed, and then there's another point, which is like way down on the continuum when you're saying like I'm taking my mother with me. Okay, so I think we can kind of see that. Okay, there's some differences in how the perception of self and others, self-identity, extensions of self, how those can be looked at. Okay. Oh, one more point. So it seems like perhaps people with HD may be more likely to see objects like this as physical extensions as opposed to memory triggers. Okay, so I've gone through a lot of information. I'm trying to go through it as quickly as possible. That's the first part. I'm going to stop here and regroup, and then I'm going to come up with part 2, so you'll have to look for that, okay? Thank you.